Good morning. Today I'm at Kimmeridge Bay on the south coast of Dorset, and I'm out and about nice and early. It's just after 8 o'clock at the moment. I'm pretty much the first person down here. I was the first person they let in through the toll road. In fact, I was here before the toll road was open because I didn't know what time it was going to be open. How many times can you say open in one sentence? I've come down to the bay, and I'll show you around in a minute. I've got a couple of images I want to take. One is from the west side of the bay, looking back toward Clavel's Tower. I think it's Clavel's Tower, Clavel's Folly. I'll put the name up somewhere on the screen. Okay, what it is. Actually, thinking about it, I really do need to do more research before I get to places so that I can say it to camera rather than keep putting things up on the screen. So there's that image. There's sort of different layers to the bay. It should make for a nice image. First layer requires the tide to be in quite a way, which it is at the moment. It will need to go out a little bit, hence the reason why I'm here this early. In fact, there's two images. One image which involves nice foreground interest and some sort of leading lines. It's almost like a little bay within a bay created by the rock formation and the erosion. And that was quite nice. And then when the tide goes out a bit further, there's some nice slate that's been revealed, a nice little ridge of slate that also acts as a leading line. It's a slightly different composition, slightly different angle from the first one, but very similar. That should look quite nice. I'm hoping to get both of those today. I'm also hoping to get an image from, I think it's called the main ledge. I'll have to check that. Which I did actually get a couple of images a few days ago, but I've only got a couple of clean images because there's quite a few people around. And of course, this isn't here just for me to take pictures of. It's for other people to enjoy as well. And I'll just play like that. So yeah, I've got a couple of clean images, but there's also a couple of images where I've got some ghosting going on, where the people that decided to walk out on the ledge were stood around in the same place for quite a while, and the camera didn't sort of get rid of them whilst it was on. I think it was about a 3-minute exposure. I might need a bit less today because it's a lot early in the day. That was sort of mid-afternoon. But yeah, hopefully get some of them images. I also wanted to get around to what's called Clavel Pier. It's an old pier. It's sort of pretty much demolished now, but there's a load of, I think they call it the triangular shaped smooth rocks. That's all that's left behind. But that's all dependent on whether the army firing ranges are open. It did so, just say on the sign, sort of between holidays and weekends. So coming down on a Saturday, I thought, well, chances are good that it'd be open and I'd be able to get there. But looking across the bay, I can see that the flag is up, so that's going to be a bit of a no-go today. So I'll just have to concentrate on these other 2-3 compositions, and perhaps then have a wander to see if I can see anything else. Okay, I found my composition again. Looks slightly different to how I remember it from a few days ago. obviously the tide's in, so it just makes things look a bit different. I've also gone for a slightly lower angle, and hopefully that will make for, it seems to make for a nice composition on the back of the camera. So unfortunately I'm just having to wait for my camera to sort itself out. I just have to change the battery, and for some reason it's coming up error on the little screen, so I'm just leaving it switched off for a few seconds, hoping it sorts itself out. Otherwise this is going to be a very short vlog. But I'll just show you now what image I'm shooting, and I'll roughly try and get the same sort of composition in the frame. Okay, so here we have my composition. We have a leading line for the rock, the edge on the left hand side leading out, taking your eye to the tower and the bit of land that sticks out into the sea. Also have this bit of rock on the right. It doesn't really lead you anywhere, but I say just under the surface there is a slate outcrop of rock, and when the tide goes down a bit, that will help guide or produce another image that will also guide your eye to the tower as well. So we'll probably try and get that one in a bit as well. Right, I'm going to see if my camera's working again and crack on with taking some images. A lot of the exposed rock at Kimmeridge Bay is patterned, as you can see. It makes for some interesting shapes and designs on the rock, and I think you could spend a lot of time finding lots of nice little compositions within those patterns. But it's also interesting to see how these, or the erosion, affects the actual edge of the rock. If we turn around to the right, just move over a little bit, you can actually see where a chunk of the rock has come away, and it's come away presumably along sort of the fault, or a bit where it's worn away. I think you can see the deeper cracks and lines, and that looks as though that's what dictates what bit of rock is falling off. So all it is going to be a matter of time, excuse me, I'm full of cod, it's going to be a matter of time before these other bits of rocks come away from the edge. And I think we can see this one. Let's pan down a bit. You can actually see that's actually quite eroded at the edge. So it wouldn't be too long before this bit comes away. Or certainly within the next, well, I'll say a couple of years. It might be sooner than that, it might be longer. But as you can see on this bit of rock that's come away, how it's kind of the sides are really quite smooth, so the erosion's going sort of straight down. But two, over time, it's moved away from the main body of the rock. So yeah, it would have fallen a bit when it first came away, because the underneath ledge at the front would have eroded, which has probably caused the rock at the far edge to sort of become too much weight for to stay in place. So it's obviously tipped forward and come away from the main bit of rock somewhat, but to have gone that far out has got to have been the effect of the tides. I think it's fascinating. Right, I've just come across this little composition, which I think would work quite well. Unfortunately, because of the direction of the sun, it's probably not going to make for too nice an image at the moment. But if I was able to come back later on in the day, probably towards sunset, unfortunately I'm not going to be able to do that because I've got to leave today, but that would make for a really nice image. The only problem I see is the foam that we've got down on the sea. Might work with a longer exposure if that blends that out, but you're probably going to be ended up with a nice white patch in the corner of the image, which might spoil it. But if it wasn't for that, this would make for quite a nice composition. Even just the rocks by themselves is a nice pattern. I say the sun's in the wrong direction, and yeah, that foam ruins it somewhat. It'd be nice to see what it would be like after a bit of a stormy or windy day or night, see if that would clear out of the way somewhat. Here we have the tide coming in over the top layer of the rock around the bay. It's starting to cover the nice patterns. And as you can see down here, with the rock being wet, it's a completely different colour, and it's a lot warmer, and sun bouncing off it isn't quite as harsh. But the tide isn't coming quite quickly. I might just grab my camera and see if I can take a quick image of this and see what I can make of it. I've now retreated from the incoming tide. The little area sort of in the middle of the screen, just a bit before the sea, you can see the ridge I was taking images of. I was stood just to the left of that. That is now covered in water, and my feet would be getting wet if I was still there. So I've retreated probably about 10 metres back altogether, and I've actually come across another composition. This nice little ridge of stone winding its way out to the sea. Should look quite good once the sea's come in a bit more. Right, I've come back to the car. The tide is well and truly in now, and it's got rid of all the compositions that I was working down there. It's going to be a good couple of hours before the tide goes back out again, and I can get back to take some more images of those compositions. But as it's a nice day, there's quite a lot of people who have come out now. The car park's fairly full, and there's a lot of people kicking around. Even on the bit of beach that is still accessible, it's becoming relatively crowded, and I can see in the area that I was taking pictures in, it's not going to be as easily accessible for myself, and as the tide goes out, people will be moving with it, so I'm probably not going to get the clean images I would like, and I certainly wouldn't be doing any blogging down there. I'm really not comfortable doing vlogging with people around me. Not yet anyway. We'll work on that. But also the light, the sun is quite high in the sky now, so the direction I'll be shooting in, the sun is going to have a massive impact. You're going to get bleached out skies if I'm taking pictures of skies, or I'm going to get a lot of reflection off the sea, which is going to ruin the images, because I just want like flat light across all the sea. So my plan is to come back later in the year or early next year, when I can pretty much guarantee the beach is going to be empty. Hopefully the tide times will be a bit more in my favour, so I can have a better day of it. And I would really like to do some sunsets here. The direction that the sun's setting in quite nicely would light up the tower. I should do that for most of the next few months and into early next year, and should make some for really quite nice images. But I do need to make sure that the tides are right, and that there's not too many people kicking around to ruin my image. So look forward to coming back and sharing those images with you within a few months. So I'm going to call it a day for today. I'm going to grab a quick bite to eat and something to drink, and then I'm going to head off back to my lodgings, gather my trappings, and head off back home, because today is my last day here. I've got a couple of days, and then I'm heading up to Scotland for a few days. So there'll be a few vlogs coming from there. I've got quite a packed itinerary, even more so than down here, because I've got a little less time and there's a lot I want to get in. In fact, more than I originally planned, because I've found a few more places that I want to go and take pictures of. So I look forward to getting up there in the next couple of days and spending some time in Scotland. And I look forward to sharing my images and future vlogs with you. That's all for now. Goodbye.